This video features the voice of Merwin, one of our grade 12 Hume students.
Functionalism and Marxism might be different in many ways, but they share a number of common approaches to the study of society. 1. They are both macro theories, offering general explanation of the society as a whole. 2. They are system theories, meaning they view society as a system made up of several parts. Social structures make up society for functionalism, base and superstructure for Marxism. Thirdly, they tend to see human behavior being shaped by the system. Both theories have deterministic view of human behavior. For functionalism, behavior is largely influenced and directed by the prevailing norms and values of the social system, while Marxism sees behavior as a part of the superstructure being shaped by the economic base. Symbolic interactionism is different from functionalism and Marxism on those 3 points. 1. It is a micro-theory. It focuses on small interactions and not on society as a whole. 2. It rejects the notion of a social system, and as a consequence, it doesn't see human behavior being directed by the system. Symbolic interactionism, as the name implies, is concerned with interaction, or the actions between individuals. The theory seeks to understand the process involved in our social interactions and begins with the assumption that actions are meaningful for those involved. Meanings require interpretation. An understanding of the action therefore requires an interpretation of the meanings which individuals give to their actions. Imagine this scenario: a man and a woman in a dark room. One of them lit a candle. What possibly are they doing? It might be that there is a power outage and they simply need a light in the room. It can also be that they're performing some bizarre and religious rituals in the dark with lighted candles. But it can also be a romantic candlelight dinner set for their wedding anniversary. Different meanings can be attached to the act of lighting a candle. To understand the act, it is therefore necessary to discover the meaning held by the actors. The theory tells us that meanings are not fixed, and depends in part on the context of the interaction. Meanings are created, developed, modified, and changed within the actual process of interaction. Let us take an example. You entered in a new class in a new school. Initially, you might define the situation as threatening and hostile. Your initial definition of the situation may be confirmed, modified, or changed depending on how you will perceive the interaction as you engage with your new classmates. Your definition might change. For example, if you come to perceive your classmates as friendly and understanding, your definition of the situation represents your reality in which you will structure your actions. A change in perception results to changes in actions. How do we define situations? The process involves an interpretation of the way others see you. The one who interprets the situation is you. For this reason, particular emphasis is placed on the idea of the self. Individuals develop a self-concept or a picture of oneself. Our self-concept has an important influence on our actions, but before going into that, we have to answer the question: how do we develop our concept of ourselves? We do not possess self-concept at birth. The interactionist Charles Horton Cooley used the term looking-glass self to explain how we acquire an idea of self. He noted that self-concept develops from interaction with others as we grow up. It is largely formed from our reflections of how others see us based on their interactions with us. A student develops his identity as a student, for example, as he interacts with a teacher who then interacts with him as his teacher and him as his student. We act based on our self-concept. Thus, when someone is repeatedly defined as lazy or disrespectful, he will tend to see himself that way and act according to the acquired self-concept. In theory, a consistently labeled as disrespectful young person may tend to live up according to the definition of himself. So far, it is discussed that symbolic interactionism is concerned with the process involved in the definition of the situation and the definition of self. Now, how does an individual come to be defined in a certain way? The way we interpret the language, gestures, appearance, and manner of others and the context in which the interaction takes place all contribute to how we define others. For example, how come an individual is defined as a delinquent in a community? Researchers show that police are more likely to perceive an act as delinquent if it is happening in a low-income depressed community. For example, a squatter's area. The squatter's area is the context where the action takes place. Unfortunately, people typically hold preconceptions which associate squatter's area as a bad area. That explains why law enforcers are more suspicious and tend to make more apprehensions in such places, compared for example to an exclusive subdivision. Moreover, an individual is more likely to be defined as delinquent if his manner is interpreted as aggressive or uncooperative, or if his appearance is seen as unconventional, or if he speaks in a certain way associated with those living in a depressed area. Someone who is clothed in formal business attire and speaks fluent English is less likely to be suspected of a street crime compared to a poor street dweller. Definitions of individuals are not, however, simply based on preconceptions. A process of negotiation may happen from which definition emerges. Negotiations may reinforce or change preconceptions. For example, the apprehended street dweller may explain to the policeman that he is innocent and just doing his daily work to earn a living for his family. In this way, he can successfully promote an image of oneself different from how he is preconceived. The idea of negotiation can also be applied to our concept of roles. For symbolic interactionism, roles are not completely provided by a system like a script an actor should strictly follow. Interactionism argues that roles are often unclear, ambiguous, and vague. Thus, roles only provide very general guidelines for actions. People may negotiate on how they will carry out their roles. For example, in a marriage, the roles of a husband and wife are not clearly set out and may be negotiated during the process of their interaction. In summary, symbolic interactionism as a micro-theory focuses on the process of interaction. Interactionism puts importance on the concept of self as it influences the way we define and act in certain situations. For it, all actions is meaningful, and they can only be understood by discovering the meanings which individuals assign to their actions. These meanings are not fixed, they are created, changed, and negotiated in the course of our interactions.